What is up, guys? On this video, we'll be installing the Tanks Inc. fuel injection fuel tank in the 70 Chevelle. So let's get it. All right, so as you guys know, in order for any video to get any kind of views on YouTube, you gotta do an official unboxing video. So let's see what's in the freaking box. Hey, look at that. It's a bunch of more boxes with fuel shit in it. So let's go ahead and pull the fuel tank out and get started. So although the fuel tanks are made specifically for your vehicle's make and model, the fuel tank hanger where the fuel pump attaches to is actually universal. So you have to measure it out and adjust it and make it fit your fuel tank. All right, so let's go over this fuel tank. So the reason we ordered this fuel tank from Tanks Inc. is because we're going to mount an Intank fuel pump for our fuel injection engine for our LS swap. We want to make sure that the fuel tank is set up for an Intank fuel pump. I'll show you guys in a bit what the difference is between this and a carbureted style fuel tank. So notice the two different size holes in the fuel tank. So the left side, that hole is for the fuel level sender. That's what tells you how much gas you have in the fuel tank. And then you see the hole to the right. That one actually has a fuel bolt in it. That's where you put your Intank fuel pump, and that's where it holds extra fuel or some reserved fuel for your fuel pump. And it's also used to cool your fuel pump when it's running. So let's go ahead and install the fuel pump first. So as I said, this hanger is a universal style unit. So it works with multiple tanks from Tanks Inc. And we have to take some measurements, and I'll show you guys how to do that right now. This is a fuel level sender. It's pretty much drop in. So we're going to go ahead and install that last. So in order to install this fuel pump correctly, we have to take a few measurements. So the first measurement we're going to find is D, which is the depth of the fuel tank. So we're going to take a tape measure, and we're going to measure where the fuel pump goes in all the way to the bottom and then to the very top of the fuel tank. And for us, that happens to be exactly 7 inches. So we're going to go ahead and write that down. The next measurement we're going to look for is P, which is the length of the fuel pump, including the fuel sock. So we have to measure that with the fuel pump and with the fuel sock attached to the fuel pump. So now we're going to attach the fuel sock to the fuel pump. And then we're going to take the measurement and find P. And you want to make sure that you measure from the end of the sock to right where the end of the tube for the fuel pump will be attached to. So we are using the Hellcat fuel pump for this installation, and ours happens to be exactly 5 inches. So next we're going to find S, and we're going to use those two numbers to calculate S. So S is basically the depth of the fuel tank minus the length of the fuel pump, and that will give us S, which is the length of the supply hose. So now we're going to measure down 2 inches from the bottom of the hanger on the fuel supply hose, and we're going to cut it off. After you cut it off at the 2-inch mark of the supply hose, then you're going to attach your fuel pump to it and use the 2 clamps that were included to tighten everything down. So next, we're going to measure and cut the return tube, this white tube here. And the way you get that measurement is you figure out what your depth was and you subtract 1 inch from that. And then you make sure you cut that tube at a 45-degree angle. So for our setup, that would be 7 inches minus 1, which is 6 inches. We're going to mark it and then we're going to cut it. So now we're going to run our positive and our ground cable for the fuel pump through our sender. So we got to loosen up these top nuts up here and then slide the wires through. So you're going to have one wire going through one nut and then the other wire going through the other nut. It doesn't matter which way or which nut you slide which wire through, as long as it goes through and it meets up to the fuel pump. Once you slide the wires through the nuts and you have enough slack so you can connect it to your fuel pump, you want to start tying up these nuts probably a 1/4 inch at a time. And then once you do a 1/4 inch turn to tighten it up, you're going to pull on the wire a little bit. And if it slides through, do another 1/4 inch of a turn and then pull again. And you want to get it to where the wire doesn't move not that much, but you don't want to over tighten it either. All right, so it looks like your boy Swap fucked up and forgot to put the sock over the pump. So I had to go ahead and pull that sock off and then put this freaking rubber sock over the pump to like keep it warm, I guess, during the fucking winter or some shit. But I think it's supposed to keep it, I don't know, fucking cool or make it quiet or something like that. But anyways, now we're putting back the filter sock on and we're going to put it back together. So next, we're going to slide this cork gasket in. Let me go ahead and fast forward this shit because I'm sure you guys know how to do a cork gasket on the fuel pump. And then we're going to slide the fuel pump in the fuel tank and go ahead and tighten it down. So once you start tightening it down, you're going to want to use a cross pattern. And then don't over tighten one side and then go to the other side. And like kind of like tighten them evenly in a cross pattern so that way you don't like squish the gasket too much on one side or put it in uneven. All right, so next we're going to install the fuel level sender. So let's go ahead and put the rubber gasket on first. And then we're going to go ahead and slide it in the slot where it goes in. We're going to use a Phillips size screwdriver. I think it's the Phillips number 2. And we're going to tighten down these, again, using a cross bolt pattern. So since we plan to run E85, I'm going to go ahead and convert everything over to 6AN. So that way I can run some PTF hoses from the fuel tank all the way to the front. So since these are, I believe they're 1/4-inch NPT threads for the adapters on the fuel tank, you will need to use some kind of Loctite sealant. You could either use like a thread sealant. I like to use Loctite 242, the blue stuff. That works good for fuel and it also seals up the threads and everything like that. So we're going to go ahead and tighten up these both fittings. Make sure you annotate which one's your feed and which one's your return, because once you put the tank up there, it's going to be hard to pull it down just to read those freaking input and output labeling markings. So next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run these wires into one connector, and I'm going to use a 3-pin connector. I'm going to connect the 2 ground wires together to the center pin, and then the white wire on the left side, that's going to be my fuel level sender indicator. That's going to go to my gauges in the front. So I'm going to put that on the left side of the pin, and then I'm going to use the right side to connect my power to the fuel pump. So the power and the ground, those 2 wires are going to be 10 AWG gauge wires. And then the left side, I'm going to run a 16 gauge wire all the way to the front. So because I'm running 8AN lines to the front, this adapter here that goes 8AN to 1/4-inch, as it screws in, it started to hit this screw right here. So I had to get a separate, a different screw that had a smaller head. So I went with like a little small Allen head screw with a pan head on it. So that way it could clear. So just a heads up, guys, in case you guys are running bigger lines. So I'm going to go ahead and install the line for the feed and the line for the return onto the fuel tank before I hang the fuel tank, because it's easier than doing it while it's already up in the air. After that, we installed the fuel tank. I didn't get footage of that because I figured most of you guys know how to do that. But anyways, if you guys like these videos and you guys want to support me, check out my website. I got some cool merch, so it doesn't matter if you're an LS guy or any guy. If you built your car, you can buy these built not bought t-shirts and hoodies. And if you guys need help with your LS swaps, definitely subscribe to my Instagram, where I have a section where I actually answer questions and help people finish their swaps. That's it for this video, guys. The next video should be on the B code radiator that we installed on the 70 Chevelle.